Well, hello, everyone. On behalf of the Niagara Association of Realtors, the Niagara Board of Trade and Commerce, the Welland Pelham Chamber, and Port Colborne-Winkley Chambers of Commerce, I want to welcome you to what we hope will be an informative hour. I'm Kevin Jacobi, and I'll be your moderator. Our members have experienced a number of challenges over the past 2 years. As we are eager to hear the candidates' perspectives on some of these issues, we have identified 5 questions that we have asked each candidate to address. These questions are based around our business community. Each candidate will have up to 3 minutes to respond to each question. They will each be provided with 30 seconds warning. When their 3 minutes are up, the microphone will be muted. So joining us this afternoon are Jeff Burch, our NDP candidate. Hi, Jeff. How are you doing?
Hey, Kevin. How are you?
Well, thank you. And Terry Flynn, for our Liberal candidate. How are you, Terry?
Doing very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're quite welcome. We did invite also Fred Davies, the PC candidate, but he sent his regrets. Unfortunately, we won't be able to hear his opinions at this or the other debates we've been listening to over this past week. Michelle MacArthur, the Green Party candidate, was also invited, but was not able to attend. All right, and we've already done our speaking order for this. So the candidates received the 5 questions ahead of time, so we weren't going to shock anyone. If there's any questions or follow-throughs from our audience, if they want to put it into the chat line, if we have time, we'll try to address those. Otherwise, we're looking forward to hearing both Jeff and Terry's opinions on these 5 issues. So the order will be, Terry, you'll begin on our first question, followed by Jeff. And then we will reverse the order back and forth as we go through the different questions. So our first question that Terry will begin with is, how does your housing strategy ensure that affordable housing is available to support the various levels of jobs created by employment in commercial zones here in the area?
Thank you, Kevin, for this question. This is one of the most important questions of this election. And the answer is build, build, build. We need to build. I can't say it enough. It's no secret that there's a housing crisis in Niagara. And for some reason, the provincial government continues to ignore us. Last month, the average home in Niagara cost over $750,000. That's also here in Welland as well. So the costs are going up everywhere. You used to have pockets, you don't have them anymore. How does a young person or a family expect to find a path to home ownership? Yeah, you can't. The Liberal Party of Ontario has a plan, and that plan is to build 1.5 million homes, as well as 138,000 deeply affordable homes, including 78,000 social and community homes. These homes will help our people who need them the most. These homes will also help, and we will be looking at housing for 22,000 homes for Indigenous people. The housing plan creates 150,000 new jobs. We need those jobs. We need skilled labor. We will also ensure homes are actually being lived in by increasing taxes on vacant homes and banning non-resident ownership, and introducing use it or lose it tax on homes that developers are still sitting on and where the land is ready to develop. On top of that, we will create a clear path to home ownership for renters. But all that you can do is read our platform, and it's all in our platform. It's all listed, it's all costed out. I'll support our party's plan for housing in Ontario, and I'll also be an advocate for regional economic development. They're a resource to us that's very important that we don't utilize enough. Some people work in St. Catharines, live in Welland. Others visit the Falls for entertainment. Some people live in Wainfleet, work in Thorold, and visit Niagara-on-the-Lake. Point being, we live, work, and play all across the region. And so when affordable housing is built in Welland, it's good for all of Niagara. When affordable housing is built in Grimsby, it's good for all of Niagara. When affordable housing is built in Fonthill, it's good for Niagara. The level of regional advocacy is what the people of Niagara expect from the representative. And I will make sure that this gets done. It's a crucial area. The affordability is so important right now, and we can't emphasize that enough. Especially for the young people, especially for the aged in our community, we want to make sure that we're getting it right, and that we are actually listening to the people of our riding. Toronto can give us some of the policies, but we as representatives of Niagara Centre have to do our work and know what our constituents need. We need to be out there to work with them, and we see it day to day. Jeff and I see it on a regular basis when we're out there.
Thanks, Kevin. And as the municipal affairs critic for the official opposition, housing, as you can imagine, has something that's taken up a lot of my time and attention over the last 4 years. I've also had some really interesting conversations with the Niagara Workforce Planning Board, which I find is an excellent resource to understand how issues like housing affect the labor market. In March 2020, Niagara's average home price was $452,000, a little more than that. In March 2021, it increased by 37.2% to over $620,000. In Ontario, we saw an increase from $685,000 to $890,000, almost a 30% increase through the same period. So this annual increase in local housing cost is larger than Niagara's 5-year increase in individual income. And so it leads to, obviously, to unforeseen consequences in local migration, workforce attraction and retention. And, interesting when you look at an issue like living wages in Niagara and the components that make up what we consider to be a living wage. If you talk to folks like at the Poverty Reduction Network, housing is the biggest component, the others being transportation, food, childcare. And when we're in a market where there is a labor shortage and there is high inflation and housing, that single cost is going up by so much, that is such an upward pressure on wages. And when businesses are competing for labor, it creates a really hard time, obviously, for businesses in the area. So I think that really outlines the problem. The solutions that we offer, building 250,000 affordable and non-market over the next decade. This government's been fixated on supply. And what they forget about is the other side of that equation, which is demand. You can't just build big highways to big homes and not address the real demand, which is for affordable housing. We have to take on speculation. One of every 4 homes that are bought as an investment, not as a home. And so that speculation is at the heart of what's driving up prices. So that has to be tackled. And we want to increase the supply of homes that are affordable by helping people create that middle, or helping municipalities create that middle market housing, laneway houses, granny flats, basement apartments. Very, very important part of the solution to the problem. And we want to help first-time home buyers by providing access to 10% of purchase price for down payment through a Home in Ontario program. And that's important because obviously young people are having such a difficult time getting into the market. I don't know how a young person affords to get into the market if they don't have a lot of help from parents or someone else. It's almost impossible. So it's really important that we provide that help to them as well. So many different solutions to a very complicated problem, but I think that we have a full buffet of solutions that we want to implement.
Our second question is, what is your party's plan to ensure we have a skilled labor force? The reason behind this one coming from our membership is the idea that we're having some challenges finding staff for our businesses. So, Jeff, what's your comment on this question here?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So an Ontario NDP government will make training accessible province-wide by bringing job training opportunities to places where Ontarians actually live and creating new opportunities in every region. We also think it's important for more high school trades and shop classes. I think every party recognizes that that's a big part of the solution when it comes to trades. We want to recruit and train people from equity-deserving communities. So this means developing specialized recruitment and retraining programs for youth, lifting those who are typically excluded from skilled trades, such as women, racialized people, and Indigenous peoples. I have a history working in immigration in the Niagara region, and it's critically important that we recognize credentials. We need a strong manufacturing strategy, so we'll retain jobs, bring in accelerated depreciation for certain plant and equipment upgrades is in our platform. Invest a share of cap and trade revenue in programs and technologies that help energy intensive and trade exposed industries compete and adapt to the products our new economy needs. And we need to work with manufacturers to bring in a labor force strategy. So we need to find workers that fill vacancies and provide appropriate training to the workers of tomorrow. And as I mentioned, that big component of that is making sure that we recognize credentials of immigrants. We heard a story last night in the leaders debate about a doctor living in Fort Erie who works in Buffalo because they can't have their credentials recognized. So that's going to be a big part of that strategy as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Terry, can I get your comments on this question?
Absolutely, and I'm seeing it firsthand as well. I'm in the process of trying to build a house, and I understand there's a a shortage of skilled labor out there, and skilled trade jobs such as plumbers, electricians, construction workers offer some of the most in demand jobs right now, and they're stable and they're well-paying jobs. And we understand that. On top of that, tradespeople are needed to accomplish everything that we want to build, from our schools, our hospitals, our highways, the new housing that's being brought on board, the public transit system. So we need to get more of these people skilled, especially those unrepresented in the trades. We'll enhance our apprenticeship program, working with unions, employers, and schools to promote these great opportunities. I had the opportunity when I was younger to actually be in an apprentice program, and I'm glad I did. And that's the one thing I think that's missing from high schools today is bringing them in young, bringing back the shop classes and bringing back these type of classes into the high school system, so they can get a taste of it and understanding what it's about. When we do these programs, we're going to expand, obviously, the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Programs, and like I just mentioned, bring in the shop classes into the high schools, as well as funding union and employer-led training at more comparable levels to colleges. We'll also give $2,000 to those who go into apprenticeship training by doubling existing federal incentive plans. We in Ontario, we can be in the driver's seats of our immigration system, much like Quebec does right now, to bring internationally trained professionals with the skills we need, while also supporting newcomers who want to become business owners. We know what skills we need in the workers, and an Ontario Liberal government will ensure immigration in Ontario is a reflection on that as well. It's very sad to see, and when we talk about skilled labor, we're also talking now, which is hard to believe, that we're going to need nursing professions. We're going to need doctors. I never thought that we would be seeing that right now, but skilled professionals all abroad, we need, and we can bring them here to Niagara, and we can support them, and we need to support them. People first. That's what's most important right now. People first. People are hurting, and we need to make sure that we're there to help them. We need to give them the tools to succeed. And if they don't have those tools, we will find them. So we'll have your back. That's our job. That's our job as MPPs. Perfect.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you both for that one. As a business owner, that's a very important one, especially to us. One thing I'd like, if either of you are successful to help lead our community in the future, is the key word for us too is micro-credentials, investing in the people we already have. So if there's a way of adjusting our education to allow that, that'd be great. Appreciate it as well. So our next question is, again, one that's kind of close to heart. It's about supply chain.
You forgot to let me answer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
I have a few things to say, but no problem. Thanks, Kevin.
Okay. I think you started that question there, Jeff. So that's why I did it.
Oh
yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought we were on the supply chain. Sorry about that.
We're going on to supply chain right now.
I'm so excited I skipped ahead.
Well, I'm glad. As a warehouse guy, I'm excited too, Jeff. So I appreciate the enthusiasm.
No problem.
Well, exactly. And the idea here is supply chain has been a huge challenge. It continues to be a challenge for a lot of our business right across the board. So again, we're going to be looking for leadership to help us go through these phases and help us with resiliency. Now, I will get to you, Jeff, but I think we're going to get Terry to start on this one here first for us. So Terry, what would you be able to help us with the idea of supply chain and how we're going to be able to deal with it for different types of companies?
Again, I really believe that it's a made in Ontario solution. If one thing is for sure that we've noticed is we weren't ready for a pandemic, and we better have learned our lessons, and we better have pandemic readiness in that plan. And not just for pandemics, but for any major storms that may come our way. We're not out of the woods. So if anything, this is helped us to understand that we're not immune in Niagara. And this was a worldwide problem. What it did bring to light is the fact that we cannot support our own markets within Ontario. Just take a look at the vaccine, for instance. We should have our own company, and we will have our own company in Canada that we can get vaccines in the future. But don't rest on our laurels just based on that. So we need to really be moving forward to make sure that we have a province that we can promote that is ready to accept all businesses. We also need to have the stronger government in place to make sure that we are identifying what markets we need. In terms of food, that's a major one. We can see that. Ontario is blessed with abundance of food supply. But a few big companies seem to dominate food retailing and processing. These control price levy, new fees and suppliers to make significant profits. We're ready to take on these mega companies and their abusive behavior towards farmers by legislating fair and open negotiations between retailers and suppliers. A move that will drive down food prices in the long term. We also make Ontario food supply chain more resilient by preserving their farmlands and promoting sustainability in farming techniques. I grew up in farmland, obviously. I was born and raised in Niagara-on-the-Lake. So I understand we have the food here, but we need to protect the green belt. We need to give them the tools to succeed. And I know that's a cliche term, the tools, but the fact is we're still poor at it. We really are poor at it. So we have to make sure that we're working with our small businesses, that we're working with our large businesses, the businesses that are made in Ontario. I want made in Ontario solutions. I want to be able to sit here and make sure that from the farm to the table, that it's getting to the people who need it the most. With these, I will also be taking a look at protecting Indigenous communities and farmers and strengthening the powers of the Ontario Conservation Authority to provide them with the tools and resources they need to prevent the flooding and protect our natural resources. You can see there's some key points that I put down on here, and it's sad to see what's happening with our environment today. It's sad to see when we wake up, we have flooding in our own backyards now. We have significant storm watches now. We have significant rainfalls.
Jeff, same question about supply chain, please.
Thanks, Kevin. I think I'd like to make three main points, and just to pick up on some of the things that Terry was saying, which I very much agree with. As municipal affairs critic, I've had a lot of opportunity to look at issues like urban sprawl, and protecting farmland is crucially important to our food security. We're losing an absolutely shocking amount of farmland every single day in Ontario. And, I know that highways and transportation are important things for business, and we all know that. But we have to make sure that, when it comes to something like Highway 413, we're not destroying the environment, destroying farmland for the sake of 30 seconds on a commute. That's not going to do anything for food security. Here in Niagara, we've got a Conservative government that wants to twin the Garden City Skyway but ignoring healthcare. So I don't think that's good for business either, quite frankly. I would also like to bring up government procurement. We have to make sure that we do that in an intelligent way. A lot of you are familiar with the Meridian Centre. As a city councillor, I was very much involved in that project, and we found some great ways to bring that project in on time and on budget, but using all local labor, and all of that work went to local labor, local companies, and that's so important into the future, not only for supply chain issues, but to make sure government funds that we expend support our local economy. And finally, we need to flat out support our local businesses. I spoke this morning's debate about Norgem Biotech, a fantastic company in Thorold, who makes PCR tests, and they're making them for the U.S. military. And they're not, the rapid antigen tests that we all struggle to get if you could make it to the liquor store on time. These are actually the updated technology, portable PCR tests, and they make them for the U.S. and they're making them right here in Thorold, and they can make hundreds of thousands of them. So we need to when we find businesses like that, we need to make sure that we put them front and center and invest in them. Hundreds and hundreds of jobs locally that could have been created during the pandemic by investing in a local company.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Our next question, unfortunately, is around the pandemic. I'm sure we're all a little tired of speaking about it, but we have to learn from what's happened over these past few years. And these past few years really hurt small businesses. So what will you and your party do to ensure that we stay open safely going forward? And do you have a pandemic preparedness plan if we go into another wave come the fall? And Jeff, could I ask you to start, please?
Thanks, Kevin. It's an important question, and I have a fairly long answer, so I'm gonna go fairly quickly through it. We do have a plan, and we need to take measures such as expanding paid sick days. Very important. We treated our healthcare workers terribly during the pandemic. Didn't pay them for isolation pay when they were exposed to COVID. They had to decide between telling the truth about their exposure and being able to feed their family, and we have to do much better by our frontline workers. Retention pay is going to be very important. Proper stockpiles of PPE. We just talked about supply chain issues. Triage protocols that are accountable to vulnerable communities. We saw spread in vulnerable communities, especially in Toronto, at far higher rates, and we have to be ready for that. Suspension of evictions. I can't tell you how many evictions I dealt with of businesses in Niagara Centre. It's just shocking the way some of them were treated by out-of-town landlords. I could give you a long, long list. Protection for healthcare workers from harassment, and I mentioned that. We also need to introduce a new Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act and other legislation to strengthen our ability to respond to crises. Can't be cutting public health, as the Ford government was doing as the pandemic hit. We need a public inquiry into COVID-19. There were some horrific examples of things that happened in long-term care. We need to protect ourselves from that. And we will require annual reporting to the legislature of public health emergency preparedness. So we have up-to-date plans going forward annually to make sure that we're prepared if that does happen again. And of course, something very important to you would be small business recovery grants. And we need to make sure that they're dependable and they're transparent and they're predictable, because those are the things that businesses need out of those grants. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Terry, your response about the pandemic and what we can do to learn from the past to go towards the future.
We're still learning, or this is a follow-up from the previous question. And again, we have the technology in Ontario, and in particularly in Niagara, to stockpile a lot of this stuff. As Jeff mentioned there, PCR tests, the type of testing that will be coming out in the future will be a simpler test. The types of vaccines we'll be getting will be a little different. We need to sit back and take stock of what happened. And what happened was major for all of us across the world. The big thing that upset me the most is what transpired with small businesses. And to keep having, your door shut, your doors open, your door shut, you can let 5 people in, you can let 10 people in. You couldn't keep up. To have federal rules in place, provincial rules in place, regional rules in place. So emergency management needs to take a stronger role and be given direction on how to deal with this. So we definitely do need to sit down and have a review of what happened, some of the tragedies that happened during this pandemic, so we learn our lesson. And we need to, again, have those skills in Ontario. It's that simple. We need to have a pandemic response plan. Who would have thought, like 100 years is a long time since the last pandemic. We've had some small ones with SARS that gave us a scare, but again, after that, we sort of went back to business as usual. I do not want to see that happen this time. I do not want to see where you pick and choose which stores are going to stay open. It made no sense to me whatsoever. And if I wanted to go to Mom and Pa's place to get some hardware, I should be able to go to Mom and Pa's place to get some hardware, not have to go to the large stores. So we're going to have to make sure that we have a plan in place that takes a look at all these, and we will definitely make sure that we are listening to the people. And it's not just, I know I'm hesitating a little bit here. I see the notes in front of me, but it's not just about the pandemic. It's about, like I said, environmental. It's making sure our emergency management team is strong, and that when we come out of this, that we're working very closely with our partners. I can't stress that enough. It's not about me sitting in a war room or Jeff sitting in a war room. It's about getting out there and actually listening to the frontline people, and you sitting down at the table with me, and you sitting down at the table with the government to tell us what we can do better. So that's why I'm hesitating on this. There's great plans. We all know what transpired, but at the end of the day, you know, our Liberal government was decimated. We needed to rebuild, and we listened to the people. We had 230,000 votes come in on our plan. So that's why I think it's important. And call it clear.
Thanks, Terry. This next question segues pretty well into the idea of pandemic, because it goes about the idea of healthcare. So how will your party ensure equal access to quality healthcare for every resident in Ontario? And Terry, I'm going to ask your opinions first.
As a frontline healthcare worker, I wish we had a few more minutes on this question, because I'm quite passionate about it. And one of the reasons why I decided to run for MPP is because what I saw on the front line. Fact is, I could have retired 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, actually 3 now. But at the end of the day, I felt I couldn't leave my staff in this pandemic, and I still feel like I need to be there for them. I don't need this job for the money. What I think I can do for the frontline staff, for the nursing staff, for the hospital staff, for the paramedics, for the PSWs, for the dental hygienists, is be a voice in Toronto and be a voice for the people of Niagara. Like I said, I've been living and breathing it. So far, I've been blessed not to have the COVID, but the day could come. But I feel we are protected. I have my 3 shots, so I'm happy about that. But to that, I'm seeing the burnout. I'm seeing the nurses leaving. I'm seeing them trying to get them in now and enticing them with double pay, triple pay, whatever it may be, just to get them in the door. The fact is that they're burnt out. So we're going to have to hire 100,000 new healthcare workers. We're going to have to do some international hiring and international trained health professionals to try to get them into our province. The nursing homes. Jeff and I both saw the devastation there at the nursing homes. We need to do the public nursing homes again, get away from privatization, making sure that we do have service reviews in place, or we have inspectors that are going in on a regular basis. You can't, tell somebody, like when we do our reviews, we'll be coming in 6 months. No, surprise them at the door, but also give them the tools they need to make sure that they can succeed. Mental health is a huge one. So we will train another 3,000 mental health and addiction professionals. I believe myself that the Minister of Health, that position needs to be expanded, and we need to have an umbrella of that, which would be just the Minister of Mental Health and Addiction. Part of this is a huge fallout from the pandemic. It was obviously here before that, but light has been put on it because of the pandemic. We will make sure that we invest $1 billion in additional capacity. We're going to bring down the wait times for surgeries. I think it's horrible that people have to wait as long as they do. And during the pandemic, actually, I had partial gallbladder removal. So I understand what was going on during that period. I was one of the lucky ones that had to live in St. Catharines General for 10 days with no visitors, and the stresses that I could see. So yeah, we need to go back to the not-for-profit model. And we need to make sure that we are doing the best we can for our employees. And we will create over 3,000 new hospital beds to help with capacity. But take a look at what's the factor that's causing this. That's long-term care beds and the lack of long-term care beds. And that's what we need to get away from the hospital system and get the long-term care patients where they should be at home or in a facility that can deal with their needs.
Great. Thank you, Terry. Jeff.
Thanks, Kevin. Well, I'm really happy that you asked the question about access, equal access to healthcare, not only across Ontario, but across Niagara. And as you may know, just before the legislature wrapped up, I passed a motion to keep the emergency department at the Welland Hospital, which is crucially important for folks in Port Colborne and Welland. After a meeting with the NHS, that where they told us they were going to cancel that emergency department or take it out of Welland, and when the Niagara Falls Hospital was built, how about, and I think there's a greater understanding of how business fits together with issues like healthcare and education, doctor shortages. Companies and employees, they look at those things when they decide whether or not to move somewhere. And how would you like to tell a prospective business or a business we're trying to attract or employees we're trying to attract that, there's not going to be an emergency department close to where they live or close to where they want to locate? And that if you need an ambulance in Fort Erie, you're going to have to be taken to Niagara Falls. Or if you show up in Welland and you need emergency surgery, they're going to have to call an ambulance when there's already a 911 crisis with ambulance service and put you in the ambulance and take you to Niagara Falls. That's not equal access. And people in South Niagara deserve, and companies in South Niagara deserve every bit equal access as folks in North Niagara. And so equality of access is a really, really important point. I have been going around with a petition, and it is on my Facebook at Burch Jeff. If any of you would like to sign that petition, the Welland Hospital was slated to be closed at one time, and we fought to keep it open. And we have to do the same thing with the emergency department now for businesses and residents in South Niagara for equity of access. And I agree with the points that Terry raised as well. We obviously need more employees. Empty beds are rooms are hotel rooms if they don't have staff to work in them. So we have to invest in our staff and treat them with more dignity and respect. We have to get rid of Bill 124, which limits healthcare workers to 1% wage increase at a time when there's 5 and 6% inflation. That means that we're treating our healthcare workers horribly by reducing their pay after all they've done for us. So lots to do. Attracting doctors, another thing very important to business, and something that businesses look at when they decide where to move. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I see we have a few extra minutes here, so I want to make sure to give each of you an opportunity to do a bit of a summary. So as moderator, I get to choose how we approach this, I imagine. So what I'd like to see is we understand what the platforms are for your parties, and we appreciate what each group is trying to do. But many of us don't vote for parties, we vote for people. We vote for leadership in our community, because regardless of who the next government will be and how it's formed, this person will be the one that's representing our community. So starting with Jeff, what I would like to ask is, how would you help us move our community towards the future? How would you personally be a part of that leadership?
Well, I think that, it's really important to get results. And the way that you get results, and I come from, municipal government where political parties, they exist. Nobody's naive enough to think that they don't, but you have to work with people. And sometimes you end up working with people who are not from the same party that you're from, better than people of your own party, quite frankly. And in order to get things done, you have to compromise, you have to work with everyone. And I think I've really demonstrated that through my 4 years as an MPP. The very first motion that I passed, I got all party support for full day, all day GO train service to Niagara. And that was a big win. I worked with Carolyn Mulrooney across the aisle to get the Thorold Tunnel back open, and expressed gratitude to her publicly for the work that she did. I got all party support recently to keep the Welland Emergency Department open, and we're going to have to work to hold them to that. And I also got all party support to protect folks in supportive living homes. So I think that's one of the things I'm most proud of, is that I was able, in perhaps more instances than most MPPs, to work across the aisle, get respect from my colleagues, regardless of what party they're from, and get real results for people in Niagara Centre and across the province as well. So I think that's a really important capability to have to be an effective MPP.
Thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate that answer. Terry, if you're chosen to be the leader for our community, how would you put Niagara forward yourself?
One of the things that Jeff said, and I'm horrible at playing partisan politics. Jeff and I are friends. Jeff was on St. Catharines City Council while I was on Niagara Lake City Council. As Jeff mentioned, I've had to work with all different parties, Conservative, NDP, Liberals. And for me, this election is so important because it's about local leadership, but it's about putting people first in the compassion. And I've got nothing against Jeff Burch whatsoever. I think he's a great guy. And I think you've seen that in our debate today, that we will do our best. In my past as a leader in Niagara, I was able to be on Niagara Lake Town Council for 21 years. 7 times, 3 of those, I was elected deputy mayor, which is the largest vote getter. You don't get that by just not doing anything. You have to be a true leader in the community. I did do volunteer firefighting for 35 years. The Lions Club, still selling Christmas trees for them, not today, obviously, but at Christmas time. I did get the highest award from Rotary Club, the Paul Harris Fellowship, from Lions Club, the Melvin Jones, Citizen of the Year Award, the Governor's General Exemplary Service Award from EMS Services. You don't get that from being a slouch, I'm telling you right now. Like I said at the very beginning, I have a lot to give, and I want to give back to this community, and I want to be here for the people of Niagara Centre. And I've said this all along, and I'm sure Jeff is sick of hearing it. I don't care if you're red, blue, green. I really don't care, orange. I'm here for you, and we represent you. And the frustrating part, I think, for Jeff and I is the fact that we don't have the Conservative candidate here. And that's just a slap in the face. And I almost want to cry. I really do. I think, we have better things that I'm sure Jeff and I could do. And we could probably retire happily, but we don't want to. We want to be involved. We want to work together. We have to. The times are different. And I'm sick of all that type of politicking that's been going on. And we saw creep up from the States and what just happened in Buffalo. I'm not even going to go there right now. I'm so heartbroken. But the fact is we have to work together. We have to listen to the people. If anything, the Ontario government learned is listen to the people. That's what I've done all along. I have to earn your respect. I don't expect the respect to be given to me because I'm Terry Flynn. It doesn't work that way, Kevin. It doesn't.
Oh, thank you, Terry. Thank you both. I really appreciate that opportunity for that question, just to understand who you are, people. And we're very lucky to have you in the community and the leadership you've shown in the past and will continue to show in the future. And you're both right. This was an opportunity for us to get to know you. This is the Chamber's version of a job interview. And for someone to get a job, you normally have to show up to the interview. Obviously, I'm sure that there's reasons why we don't have the other candidates here, but I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate you sharing your knowledge, your passion for what you're trying to do for the community, and wish you both the best of luck. So on behalf of the Niagara Association of Realtors, Niagara Board of Trade, Port Colborne, Waverley, and Welland Pelham Chambers of Commerce, I just want to thank you again for taking your time and energy to go through our questions and to give these thoughtful answers that you gave. And I want to remind everyone that's in the forum and of our 1,800 plus members that will be receiving this podcast that we need everyone to get out and vote on June 2nd. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated.